So we will call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. And Kate, can you please call the roll, please?
Luke Murray. Danielle DeSimone.
Here.
Brian Mahoney. Here. Mark Prince. James Manny. Here. Chip McGarr.
Here.
Dave Palizzetti.
Here.
And I am Kate Massananti here.
Thank you. We'll move on to approval of meeting minutes. Do we have any minutes, Kate? Did you send them to me? I apologize.
It's okay. I made them as a, so the problem may be, I had them as a Google Doc. Are you able to access them?
I did not see that, but I'll go back.
Okay.
It's clearly I didn't see it.
Okay, and I'll double check and then make sure they get posted. Will you be posting them, or is that still going to be, is Terry or Crystal, whoever?
From the schools.
Okay.
It can be posted as a draft. The biggest thing is I think we still have drafts that are up there that need to be approved.
Right, and so just for clarification purposes, the way we do it is they get posted to the SOS as a draft, and then those links can get sent, they can be printed out, but those links get sent out to the group to say the drafts are posted, and then we can approve them. That's how we've done it for all our other subcommittees, and so that's why I don't.
So as a secretary, you're in charge of it.
Okay.
However you want to work it is
Okay.
fine, and I can give you my distribution list if you want to blast them out. So
That would be helpful.
Meeting, that would be good.
That would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So we'll do that moving forward. We'll get caught up, and
Yep.
that's it. All right. So moving on, item number 3, we had review, discussion, and action regarding public correspondence. There actually was very little in this period. Check. Yeah, I think it's this month. Better? All right. Of course, it's my mic. That's right. We're getting ready to buy new ones anyway. All right. So we didn't have any communication items. We did have one that Chip sent to me, which I will forward to the group. It was broad-based, but nothing really received in the past few weeks, which I'm taking the lack of communication as a good sign because it works both ways. Moving on to number 4, general correspondence, chairperson's activities report. So on May, I think we haven't met since May 20th, correct? So on May 20th, we did have the community forum. It was attended by approximately 25 individuals. I think it was a good information session. It was, for those that attended, it was a small crowd. It was Saturday, and I think actually commencement was going on. So we went over the project. Phil gave a presentation, did a great job. He did some Mentimeter surveys, which indicated overall, there's always a few holdouts, but overall, positive vibes on the project. It seemed as though everyone was in agreement with the designs as shown in general. And we had just general questions and comments. So overall, coming out of that, I got a feeling, my sense, and Phil can fill you in a little bit more, that we're on the right track. We're doing the right things. And I think that will continue. We're going to continue to go out to the community. And even if we get small contingents or large contingents, the key is just pushing out that positive information. I did ask everyone at that time to just try to not pay attention to the social media noise and make sure that they're coming to the building committee site and any valid information sources for that information. So hopefully that was heard, and we'll be people will adhere to that sort of platform moving forward. Good news, I spoke to Mario Carino today. I got off the phone with him a couple hours ago to give him an update on the project and just to give a status. And I did indicate to him, I said it would be very helpful. We're still planning to submit June, July on the stage 2. It would be very helpful if we had some type of letter to come back to validate that RIDE is in agreement with whatever reimbursement rate. something for the voters to have some assurity that we'd be getting that. And he assured me he could get that to us. He felt very confident with that. He's actually going to send me a form letter that he's used for Lincoln and Smithfield. So I'm going to wait on that, and I'll take a look at it. But he said basically we can put in a request, and he'll send a letter back validating. We won't have a firm until November, December, because that's when the Council on Elementary and Secondary Education meets to validate any recommendations from RIDE, but it's the next best thing. And so what I'm looking to give the voters is as much surety as we can on what the town would get for bonus reimbursement. Along with that, tomorrow, I believe it is, Jim, it's tomorrow on the budget, right? They're supposed to be voting? The legislature? For the state in general. Okay. So in the budget, and actually he sent me the article, they've lifted the cap on the bonuses for communities. So right now, we're limited to 17.5% because it's half of our base housing aid, right? So that cap, and I highlighted the language in here, it is in here, would be lifted for anyone who applies prior to July 1st of 2024, which would be us. So we would essentially get an additional 2.5% bonus reimbursement if this gets voted on tomorrow as is. So that's positive news. I'm hopeful. So what they had proposed was increasing the base housing aid by 5%. I don't believe that's on the table any longer. That got pulled out. So this was the strike compromise to lift the cap on the bonuses for those districts. Some districts it won't apply at all because they were already not at that half of their housing aid, so it doesn't really matter. For us, it makes a difference. Quick back in the napkin math by Mario was that it equates to about $4.4 million on a $125 million project. So that's real money that the taxpayers kind of get back.
If the project is submitted before July 1st or 31st?
So, but before July 1st of next year.
Next year, okay.
So, and that's the other thing. The bonuses under the current legislation would get extended. Right now they expire, we've been saying December 30th. They would actually get extended until July 1st of next year, which gives us a little bit more breathing room. We knew it was tight with shovels in the ground to get a CM on board. It'll just give us that little extra, and I think it will give us, it will loosen the rush of having to plow into this thing. So we're still going to keep a fast pace, but it gives us a little bit more breathing room on that. So that was positive news as well.
Luke, just a clarifying question, because
Sure.
in terms of us helping to sell this, would that change the timeline of hoping to open for the summer of 2027? The reason I'm asking is because what we're looking at is the current 7th grade moving into 8th grade next year, and helping students to stay home and come here. That's certainly part of our pitch next early fall for getting kids to come to high school. So that you'd have your senior year in the new building if everything went according to pace is certainly a valuable piece of information.
Yeah, it's a good question, but I don't have an answer right now. I think what we need to get a little further in the process of planning. I don't think this specific date moving is going to affect our endpoint at all. I think we're still in a rush. We're going to continue to be in a rush, to a controlled rush to move forward with the project, because 6 months is not going to give us a lot more. But what it does, it gives us a little bit more breathing room as opposed to having to jam everything in the ride and say, okay, well, we're calling this shovels in the ground. We may actually have shovels in the ground, like physically. But Phil can weigh on this a little bit more. I don't know by the bond date if we'll have an exact construction schedule, because we don't have the full scope of the project yet, but
I get that, and obviously I'm never saying like 100% when I'm talking to anyone about it or when we're pitching that, but I know when we had talked about the timeline, we were looking at summer of 2027, essentially for the purpose of school, saying fall of 2027, right? Yeah. So that matters ultimately, like to have a timeline for the purpose of letting people know.
Yeah, I hear you, and we will get that. The last thing on this point is that there is also legislation as part of the budget for additional bonus monies for net zero buildings. So we've talked about geothermal, we've talked about solar panels, other This may be a path forward if that were to get passed. The words from Mario is that that is still being negotiated. It may actually get completely taken out. It may go in full. The word on the street is it could be another upwards of 10%. That's substantial. So it may cover things like geothermal and other things that we're looking at. So it's a big consideration for us because we've already heard that that's a desire of the community, and we're going to have some of those discussions on cost benefit. So if we get additional monies from the state, it would bode well. We'll stay tuned. We won't know until after, well, end of June.
I only push back on that because I thought from part of the presentation that net zero is a pretty big lift. Like,
Yeah, and I don't know what the
borderline, like-
cost would be compared to what we'd get from the state. So I say that with reservation, right? They may pass
like there
this.
was, what did we do the research? It was like 20 in North America has gone to net zero or something like that. So I hear you in saying that's a possibility, but I don't want to set expectations out in our community that we'd be shooting for that. Because while that would be ideal, I don't think it's doable to
Yeah.
the tune of $125 million.
Yeah, I won't know, we won't know until we run the numbers and figure it out. But the information right now is the state may have additional money for it, whether it's something we want to engage in or not, to be determined. All right, moving on, I was happy to receive a donation from Arnold Lumber for the float. I reached out to Tony Jarvis. He got back to me immediately, said, yes, it's a can-do. I reached out to Adam at the CTE program, and thank you, Chip, for putting us in touch. So we've coordinated delivery there. I think on the 15th, we're going to coordinate for the trailer to be at the school location, erect the walls. Phil's working on the banners. He's got the graphic sign off moving forward. It's essentially 22 foot, right? Banners that of each side of the school, front, back, and then a picture of the athletic facility. Do you have something image tonight? So Phil will show that. So it's coming together. I appreciate all those who've helped out and will continue to help out, including the CTE program. So I'll make sure that we acknowledge Adam and his efforts over at the school. Any questions on that item? Okay. I had spoken to Phil about laying out a more refined schedule because we're getting to crunch time on the stage 2. Our original schedule is off a little bit. We knew that, we acknowledged it, and we said that we'd probably be in the July. I just want to know exactly what dates we need, what approvals, so we can sign off on the stage 2 and get it in. Because the next date we set has to be firm. We're telling the community this is when it's going in, that's when it needs to go in. So I'll be working with Phil over the next week to solidify that, and then we'll communicate that out to the committee. Fair enough? All right, and then OPM interviews with today. I won't belabor this because it's the next topic, but we did interview 4 firms. It's a pretty long day. Myself, Superintendent Prince, and Kate were in on the interviews, and we'll fill you in on the next item. The last thing. So I've been serving in this role as the chairperson for approximately a year. My current role and title is Director of Administrative Services with the town. So I serve as the Personnel Director, and then I serve at the pleasure of the Town Manager. My role is soon to shift as official Deputy Town Manager, which means that my priorities are changing a little bit under the Town Manager. With that, I won't be able to continue to take on the task of chair and what goes with it. My hope would be that the OPM, to be selected soon, will be able to shoulder some of the additional tasks for whoever else would sit in this chair. But it's something that, as of July 1st, I'll be stepping down as chair. I will continue on the committee, but some of the lift I'll have to transfer over. I've been doing a lot of things that, quite frankly, OPM and others can probably distribute tasks. So I've appreciated the confidence in the role, but somebody else will have to step up from this committee. So we're looking for volunteers, so think about it.
Congratulations.
I don't know if it's congratulations.
Yeah, so let me address that. So about 6 months ago, Luke and I had a conversation about this. The volume of work he does with this is unsustainable. You can't. And quite honestly, I was worried about burnout. I mean, he does a lot of work here and a lot of work with this. Everyone does a lot of work, but it was a heavy lift, but he was doing it for the right reasons. He volunteered to do it, he enjoyed it, he was very interested in it, so it was a talent that we were lucky to have to bring here. But one of the things that was lacking here, and Luke and I talked about it, was we come up with all these initiatives in town to follow through to get them done, right? And anyone that's worked in a chain of command, you've done it, where you need, he's still gonna be the Director of Administrative Services, but he's also gonna be the Deputy Town Manager, which is, almost every town or city has one. So the projects we come up with inside the town will be also directed. He'll be in on the decision-making, and he'll be following through on it. I talked to Mark about it earlier today, just to get his feelings on it. I think a year is enough to be in that position, right? He's still going to serve on this committee. He's valuable to this committee, and I would not take him off. Brian Sylvia's staying, I'm staying. So, but I think now would be the appropriate time. So July 1st, he would take over that position, and I think will be the appropriate time to make the transition shortly thereafter, because we will have an OPM that'll take up a lot of the role that he's doing, but he's still going to be here and be an advisor and contribute. So it's a good thing. It's hard to believe, right? Almost a year we've been doing this. It's really amazing. So so that was the logic behind it. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you. All right, anything on that agenda topic item before we move on? Anything what I just filled you in on? All right, perfect. Move on to new business items. So, what's that?
I was just going to say the site drilling finished today at Curtis Corner and the high school.
Good point. I
Site
forgot to mention that in my report. Yeah, so the drilling did happen at the high school and CCMS. Thank you, Brian, for kind of keeping an eye on them. Hopefully there wasn't too much disruption. Chip, I don't know if there was any concerns from the school.
No, that was not the problem with kids being able to go outside.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Smog.
One thing I do want to identify is Brian called me and said, I'll take my time, but I want to go flyer the next door neighbors. And I appreciate you stepping up to do that. I think it quelled some of the issues we had during the survey. I think going a little bit of extra went a long way. So I appreciate it and thank you.
I'm going to follow up on that I received messages to that point. They were very appreciative, and it did a lot for even more trust to be put into the process. So thank you for doing that.
So thanks. Jim, did you have something?
I got a little excited when I saw Brian go for the mic the minute, Luke said he was stepping down. I was like, wow, Brian would make a great, huh? Yeah. You've been around, Dave, that's why. You know, you've been around.
All right. We'll get somebody. All right, we'll move on to item 5. So review of the owner's project manager interview process and recommendation for an OPM firm. So today, as I said, we met with 4 firms. Keough, we had Left Field, Downs Construction, and Colliers. Those are the 4 we invited in. It was a good conversation. We gave each team 45 minutes. We had about 15 minutes in between. We did run over some, but each firm had a different sort of presentation concept. Some focused a little bit more heavily on the communication strategy. Some focused a little heavy on the construction. Some did both. But I think they all came pretty well prepared. We appreciate their time. So I'll pass it over to Mark and Kate to give their perspectives on what they saw, and then we'll kind of go from there. So Mark, you want to start? Kate?
So, like you said, all 4 of them brought a lot of value to the conversation. Each of them had some sort of community tie, which was nice. There was some sort of connection, varying levels, and they all came forward with a great presentation. All very, very similar as far as their strengths in project management and construction management. Like Luke said, some were more focused on the PR and communication with the community, and some were focused more on construction management. But one stood out as doing both really well, and that's the one we ended up going with. I'll let Mark speak before we actually get into who that was, but that was my takeaway.
So we're very fortunate to have 4 quality organizations apply. As Kate and Luke mentioned, they came in and they gave really complete presentations. They made, all 4 of them made great strides in addressing kind of what we put out in the RFP there, and gave concrete examples of work that they've done either here in Rhode Island or Massachusetts or Connecticut, or in a few of them were in all those places. So they also spoke to, all 4 spoke about working with a high school the size that we're looking at constructing, and having to do it right on site with school happening. And a couple of them was literally have done it or are doing that right now. I think the thing that stood out to for me, and I don't want to speak for the group, but for me, the thing that stood out for me in reference to our selection was that they ticked all of the requirements and spoke openly and addressed all of them very thoroughly with specifics and details. That allowed us to kind of step into the moment and be right there, current and present with them. So I'm excited and looking forward to the next steps in this adventure.
I just want to add to it, with the one that we ended up going with, they were very invested in the fact that we had a CTE construction group. Actually, 2 of them were, but this one in particular was really, they were very excited and looking to use it as, like, you could use it as an apprenticeship, an internship, just an exposure to, and not just the high school kids, but bringing middle school kids, and then also presenting to our elementary school kids, which recently, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Rollins brought the construction CTE teachers down to Matunic. So I think it's really exciting. So, I mean, how do we want to go about announcing who it is, or?
So my consideration, in addition, we came down to 2, essentially, that were very close. But one of the firms mentioned something we've talked about is capacity, the ability to kind of take on this project and make it a priority. There's some firms that are spread pretty thin right now, and that is of concern because of the amount of work they're taking on. It may be an indicator of how well they're doing, but it also could water down our ability to move this project forward, because this is our priority. So without further ado, Left Field was the one that rose to the top on that. They're primarily, they've done a ton of work in Massachusetts. Realizing that that's a little different, building construction is not. They put heavy emphasis on building relationships with the community and staying impartial with that information. But, they actually built an entire website for us already. I'm assuming it's going to need some tweaks, but they went the extra mile. They prepared well. It was clear that they had understood the challenges of the past and knew where their starting point was. And that told me that we were a priority, because, it's a big difference when you get that boilerplate and a boilerplate presentation versus a very customized sort of feel that they did their research. It bodes well for what's going to be expected moving forward. So with that, what's that? For the CM, for the OPM? What's that? Jim Rollins?
So Jim Rogers is the principal in charge, Chris Spiegel being the project
Chris
director, along with Matt McBurney as the senior project manager.
Chris used to be with Colliers.
Yes, yeah.
And Chris actually has extensive background with Colliers and doing school construction. So they did a ton in Pawtucket and others that they had shown. I have the packet here. Everyone's welcome to take a look at it of the team. So Chris Spiegel, Mac McBurney, who is an engineer, and Linda Leporto, who is a digital communications manager, and as I said, she had already spent time on doing the communications and the website design. And that being in-house, I saw that as an advantage. One of the firms mentioned, if you need to farm it out, not really interested in having another component of this. Having that internal is key. They also have an education liaison, which I thought was important. She was a former superintendent in Massachusetts. So it's kind of a unique component.
They did a very large project, and she was talking about, like, it was from I can't remember the name of the community, but it had like 16 buildings, and she had to get all these people, working together and agreeing in a direction. And I was like, whoa. So, yeah, they were impressive.
So certainly entertain any questions you have after our big buildup of the announcement. No. So, well, we did now we have. The key to the cost is that we have being forthright, we have a limited amount of money for the phase one. I think right now in the school fund for the capital, we've kind of earmarked around $23,000. We understand that this is a phase one. It's a very limited scope, architect selection, communication, those items. We're expecting any firm, and as they should, this is a trial run for them. So we're expecting that this will be reviewed at phase two, and we'll either continue on with this OPM or we'll split ties and move on based on the level of service that we receive. So we're just making a recommendation to the school committee. What I would recommend is that they award an amount not to exceed the $23,000 and then negotiate after, or do it on hourly basis, depending on that negotiation. I think the price that they had put forward was $12,000 for this phase, which is well within budget. However, I would like to talk to them, or we should talk to them about what that entails, like what level of service, because if we require more, let's say we need a little more on the website design, or we need flyers, or we need other things, it may behoove us to keep that max limit. It's still not a significant amount of money for a project of this scale. So, but it is school money, so it's up to the school committee on how they want to handle that. Other questions? Chip, Dave, Brian, Jim? Anything? No? Okay. So with that, the next step is to recommend it onto the South Kingstown School Committee. So I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the South Kingstown School Committee the award of contract to Left Field for Phase 1 owner project management services in the amount not to exceed $23,000. And that's, Mark, it's up to you on how you want to handle that. Does that seem reasonable? Or just recommend without fee?
Usually the fee is in negotiation, so you would just make a the committee would make a flat recommendation to the school committee, and then the school committee will make a determination of
That's
how
fine.
to go from there.
So I'll entertain a motion on recommending award of contract for a negotiated fee.
Make that motion.
Thanks, Chip. Can I get a second?
Second?
Thanks, Brian. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so it'll move on. What I will do is I'll draft a brief memo to the superintendent. Just unless you, Mark, how do you want to handle this? Do you want me to write something from the chair to you, so the school committee, or do you want to just forward it on?
Yeah, you would have to send something along with
Yeah.
the packet to the school committee. It's just describing, laying out kind of briefly what happened and the recommendation of the SBC.
Okay.
So in this case, it's the unanimous recommendation of SBC for the school committee to consider moving forward with Leftwich, blah, 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 as the OPM.
Okay, I'll get a memo together next week. I'll follow up with you, and we'll get this moved forward. All right, thanks. Excellent, everybody. Hopefully we'll have a new partner on pretty soon to carry some of the load. All right, moving on. Item number 6, presentation by Studio Jade. Phil, I know you have a number of things to share with us tonight, so go ahead and plug in, and it's your show.
Good evening, everyone. So the things I'd like to talk about this evening is to go a little bit farther on what Luke mentioned about the community meeting that we had, talk about the update to the Stage 2, review some of the other activities that we've been working on, and then have this discussion about schedule and next steps. So what I want to do is run through the questions that we asked during the presentation. As Luke mentioned, there was a very small group there. So the responses are very selective to the people that were there. But I think the results will help us going forward to the bond vote. So the first question was, how would you describe the school facilities planning process over the last year? Blue is thorough and responsive. The pink is adequate and acceptable. The red is rushed and preconceived. So in general, people were trending towards being thorough and responsive, and that the presentations and the work that we've done so far is acceptable. We then asked, do you feel your voice has been heard throughout this process? So even the people who may not necessarily agree do feel that their voice has been heard. Again, this is a very small sampling. What do you think of the design approach so far? Blue was love it, pink was undecided, red was hate it. So my advice going forward as you look towards passing the bond vote is to focus on the yes votes. You will not be able to convince those who are going to vote no. I would suggest don't even waste your time with them. You saw recently that there is a momentum and a solid group of yes votes out there, and they're the ones that you'll want to focus on. Has the overall process over the last year been engaging and transparent? Blue was yes, pink was somewhat, red was no. So in general, again, people think that we are proceeding in a transparent manner. Do you feel this is the right project for SK? Blue is yes, pink was undecided, and red is no. Do you feel this is the right time for this project? Blue is yes, 2 is undecided, 3 is no. So although people may, again, not necessarily fully agree with the project, they do think it's time to do something. Do you feel informed enough to vote in an upcoming school construction bond vote? So blue is yes, pink is no. This was an open question. What more information do you need before the bond vote? And I'll read some of them. Impact to town finances. Where and when do I vote? Cost estimates. Impact to academics. Estimated cost. Some say, no, I'm ready to vote. So tax implications. Educational capabilities. So it looks like there's a contingent that is ready. There's a strong contingent that wants to know what the impact is financially. And then what is emerging here I see is a contingent that's now focused on the academics, the educational component to it. Thus far, we spent a lot of time on siting the building, which we needed to do, how the building will present itself to the community, which we needed to do. You're going to see a couple plans in here that start trending towards the interior portions of the building. And as you start to develop this project, that's the next logical progression. This was a slider survey on how much information do you feel that you need before the bond vote. And to the left is, I have enough information. To the right is, I need more information. And what's leading to the right is how the money will be spent, increase to my taxes, schedule. For the most part, the reason for the project and the benefits of the project, they feel they have enough information. So this is very positive information as you're trending towards the next steps. If asked today, will you be supporting the $125 million school construction bond? Overwhelmingly, the response was yes. So are there any questions on that community event or that survey? I think it's all trending positively for you all.
Just a comment that I want to make is even the folks who obviously said no or they hated it, it was a very respectful dialogue. There was really no aggression in the room. There was no anger. It was genuine, like the folks who were like, no, or genuinely, they had genuine concerns. And whether they were going to be convinced to change their mind or that their concerns would be ever quelled, you know, who knows, but there was, I felt that it was definitely a collaborative discussion, even with the folks who might have been a little bit on the negative side.
I'm overall very encouraged to see those results. The only thing I would like to see improved was the one about, do we have enough information to vote? I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we're never gonna win everybody over, but I would love to see that, to say, you know, 24-0. We have enough information. I don't care what your decision is, but we have the amount of information. So that's one area I'm hoping that we can, with the OPM and the communications team, get that down to as close to 0 as possible. But everything else, I mean, overall, seems to be good support in the community.
I think that's going to be a big part of this next phase, because there is a lot of information out there. Now, they have to seek it. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to get it. So it's all going to be about how that's communicated. And certainly the stage 2 will have a significant amount of information as well. So that's a good transition to this next portion, is to update you on the stage 2. So this is the table of contents, basically, for the stage 2. These 10 items are what we put together. I'm going to very quickly go through each one of these and explain what each section will include and where we are regarding each section. So the first section is project summary and prioritization. I have an asterisk next to this because this is the section that we want to distribute to the school building committee, the school committee, and the town council for their review and approval. We have found that it's not even really possible for us to send out this 1,000-page document sufficient time for everybody to recommend, review, and approve. We have been very successful in just issuing Part 1. And what Part 1 includes is a summary and the prioritization of the projects. It includes commentary and narratives on the existing conditions, summary of the project, what the scope of work is, what the cost is, what the schedule, and what the justification is. So if someone reviews Part 1, they know what they are submitting. And that's our path forward. And we'll talk about schedule at the very end. The second part is architectural feasibility. So what is in that section? Those are the structural reports that we had done. That's the soil investigation that is currently underway. Radon reports, demographic reports from NESDEC, traffic studies that we've conducted. And again, justification for the project based on all of these. So those are all reports that we will compile, put together, the wetlands reports that we did, the geothermal study that we just conducted. All of those things get brought in to the architectural feasibility study section. That section gets to be pretty long. The third section is schematic design documents. Includes the architectural program that we developed with CHIP several months ago, the educational specifications, drawings, architectural, site civil, structural, etc., renderings, narratives. Those schematic design documents are used for cost estimating. So we have a collection of drawings, technical drawings, that we have already sent out to our cost estimator. They're working on those drawings now. We will continue to put these together, and this is part 3. It will also include images like this that we have developed, the site plan, etc. For those who may not seen this, we have developed, these are not technical drawings, but we developed these for you all and for the summary. These are colored floor plans of the high schools as we have developed it thus far, and this is the basis of our estimate. And if you recall, and I'll quickly go through this, all the way to the left in the purple is our academic tower, we'll call it, and that's 3 floors. The middle area is the administration, right next to the entrance. Chip, if we talk about what we've talked about before, a very clear circulation path, up and down, left and right, so that you can quickly get through the building. That teal color right in the center is the Student Commons Dining Core, which is located near the gymnasium and the auditorium as overflow spaces. It's right along the main access that runs north-south. In the upper left-hand corner, that is the kitchen area. And immediately outside of that is the plaza that we've created for student dining that links the high school to the Hazard Building. To the right, the locker rooms, then the gymnasium, then our high bay CTE spaces, access to the exterior. And then below that is the arts, the music, and obviously an 800-seat auditorium, which you see is accessible right off of the main entrance as you come into the building, which is that, the orange area is the circulation. On the second floor, again, to the left, we have the academic tower. We have the balcony level of the stadium level of the stage. The teal is the open to below gym with the fitness, the wrestling room, the walking track. All the way to the left, the green is the media center, which would look out upon the new fields that we've created. We have a collection of CTE spaces right off of the media center. That area open to below is where the student commons and dining is. We have our guidance in the green bar, and then special education also in that green bar. And then lastly, the third floor is the top of the academic tower, where we have most the science labs and other academic spaces. So those are just some colored floor plans. Those are not the technical drawings that we've created, but we wanted you to see them, and it's important for our summary. For those who may not have seen before, this is the field layout at Curtis Corner. If you recall, this is reduced from what we've shown previously, where we used to have bleachers on both sides of the field. We have consolidated our pickleball and tennis courts, put bleachers only on one side. We've kept the existing administration building and proposed a future fieldhouse location, which would be really nice along Curtis Corner Road, look very prominent. Next section, number 4, is the design and construction cost projection. So PM&C out of Massachusetts, they're our third-party cost estimator. They are currently reviewing the documents. We've asked to have the estimates back by June 15th. Part of this section includes the RIDE school building authority allowance on how you calculate what is eligible for reimbursement for a new building. We do identify the incentives in this section, and it comes up with the total project budget. This information is also included in Section 1 in the summary. Section 5 is the financing plan. So this is where we will describe the bond and financing information that would be used. Right now, it's a $125 million capital bond, for voter approval. But we will work with the town finance person to put some other information in here, back this up. Any presentations that we've made regarding financing will be included in this section. But this is not too difficult of a section because you're planning on funding this through a capital bond. Section 6, site purchase plan, not applicable for what we're doing here. Number 7 is local support. This is where the school building authority will want to see, how did you engage the community? What activities did you have? Did you have workshops? What are some of your presentations? So we have a lot of presentations that we've made for the last couple years. So we will pull the important ones, identify the workshops that we've held, and put them in here so that they know that we have engaged the community as much as possible. In this section, there's an affirmation of some select resolutions or policies that the school committee and the superintendent have to agree to, and I'll follow up with you, Mark, on what those look like. It's not like you have to pass policies now, you just have to affirm that you will. And local support also means that we do receive school committee and town council approvals, which we anticipate on getting. Number 8, project timeline. So they'll ask for a project schedule. They'll want it detailed with milestones. The approximate duration of this schedule is about 30 to 36 months. So we will provide a schedule in this stage 2. We do put a summary of the schedule in part 1. Number 9 is the commissioning agent and OPM services. This is a statement by the school committee that says you understand that you need a commissioning agent and that you need an OPM. It's really a commitment to procure them. It sounds like you've already made a selection for the OPM, so that's done. Commissioning agent you won't need for many months, but it's just recognizing that you will be following through and doing that. And number 10 is any response to comments from the stage 1 that we put in here. So before I go any further, those are the 10 sections that will make up the stage 2. And I'll go back and say our preference is to provide at any time the school building committee for their review and recommendation to the school committee and to the town council, section 1. And that would be the amount of information you would receive.
So this may sound like a strange request, but in the past, it has been requested from town councilors and previous and other members of the community that while I understand that the document is literally this big and creating a PDF and posting that on the web is not ideal, but in the past, that has been a request that was honored, and it was just a matter of, yes, we get what we would be looking at is a shortened, condensed review that we would use, but would it be possible to have the full document digital somewhere, storage, that if someone chose to peruse 1,000 pages, they would have that capability if they wanted to?
Sure. It really comes down to a matter of time. For example, we just are finishing the soil investigation. It's unlikely that I will get the report back to them till see, we're not coming up against the September 15th deadline. So I don't, like Luke mentioned, I don't want to keep pushing this out. So if we say that we're going to submit on July 12th, I may get those soil reports like July 9th, but everyone would have voted a week earlier. So If everyone is fine with that document being a live document, meaning section 1 is complete, that's what everyone's voted on. But if someone looks at the table of contents and see that I list soil borings, and they look through the 1,000 pages and they don't see soil borings, well, that's because we haven't yet received it and to put it in. I'm fine creating a live document. I think everyone just needs to understand that there's going to be pieces missing before we finally hit submit. And of course, when we submit, it will be complete.
So I guess, what is your thoughts on that, and have you ever had experienced that in a community before?
So in communities before, we've never posted an incomplete document. We've made available the document that town council and school committee are voting on. And then, once we make the submission to RIDE, school committee has said, we're going to post this on our website, which is fine. But it's usually posted after it's submitted. And what is shared prior to that is not the entire document. Go ahead.
Any other questions on what Phil's presented so far with regard to the stage 2 update? Okay.
All right.
Phil, you got some more?
Sure, yes. So let's review some other activities. So we have contracted with a specialized consultant, Haley and Aldrich out of Massachusetts, to look at a tabletop investigation for geothermal out here. And I have a slide that we can speak to next. The geothermal investigation, particularly if it's going to be coupled with a PV component to drive to net zero, is really a stage 3 activity. Because there's a couple things that need to happen. There needs to be a lot of analysis and planning for the life cycle cost and the logistics of how you would implement a geothermal project here. And most importantly, you would want to conduct a test well so that you can have a conductivity test of the earth. And that's a significant investment. Those discussions should be had in stage 3. When everyone is on board and moving towards the project. This is just one chart from their report. It talks about, and I'll go through this, you're looking at about a 500 to 600 foot deep well for the geothermal system. That's how far they'd have to drill down. They provided a number of options that range in the number of borings that you would need to complete. And it ranges from the far right at 60 all the way to the far left at 240. There's a split between whether you would use geothermal to do all of your heating and cooling or whether it would do partial heating and cooling. That has an impact on the number of wells. Also, what you use to pump through the loop, whether it's just water or whether there is a glycol mix with the water. You're looking at a well field and the distribution of all the piping that ranges anywhere between 1.5 million up to 5 million. So that's a big swing. That's why in stage 3 it's important to really start that life cycle cost analysis to see if it's cost effective to do it. The approximate cost per hole is about $25,000. So keep that in mind. For example, that test well, that conductivity test, at a minimum, you're over $25,000 just to conduct that one test. So a lot more investigation needs to happen for the geothermal component. Other activities that we're working on is your parade, and we'll just show you some of the banners on how it'll be laid out on the trailer. This is what people would see coming down the street, right? This is the front of the trailer. For those on the south side, this is what they'll see coming down the trailer. We used a different rendering on the backside because when the parade is done, you could take these banners and you could use them elsewhere. One is of the north side, one is of the south side. This is the image on the back side of the trailer. This is what people would see as you're driving past them, moving away. So it would look something like this. And that's one side, and then... So the last thing that we should talk about, at least maybe at a high level, and Luke and I can follow up in more detail, is, so the RIDE Stage 2 is due in September. We anticipated submitting in June or July. And the reason why we're extending into July is because we need to schedule these 3 meetings. First, there will be a recommendation from the school building committee that says, yes, we want to make this submission. Then, and it doesn't matter what order, but the school committee also has to then approve the submission, and the town council needs to approve that submission. I really think this part is what needs to be wrestled with in like July. After the holiday, of course, working meetings, making sure everybody meets in July. Some communities don't have meetings in July. I think that's what we need to just work on in terms of the schedule. From a production standpoint, we will absolutely meet whatever day we need to submit this to RIDE. It's fine. And the reason why Luke had mentioned final approval won't come until November or December. But, speaking with Mario, there is some information he can release ahead of time after we make this initial submission. So that's all I have, Luke.
Can I just add one more next step? So I got a call today from the governor's office, and it's on his desk. What's that? Yeah, the typical, I'm just giving it to you, Professor. So it's the bond, made it to the General Assembly, the South Kingston proposal for the bond. And so the governor specifically asked that he be allowed to sign it. He wanted to know if the town was good with that, so of course it is. He was a mayor for 10 years, and he's big on education. So I'll let all of you, so it'll be Monday. I'm not sure what time it's due by Monday, the signature, and but I'll let you know if I asked if it was private or public, and it's private at this point, but I asked if we could have members of the town council, school committee, and whoever else, maybe people from this committee there while it's signed. It'd be a good show of unity for the town come November. So I'll let you all know, hopefully by tomorrow, if not the Monday, the time and the location, if the governor will have it done publicly. Okay.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So, Phil, if at all possible for that, at least for this committee, for that section 1, if we could get it earlier in a draft format, just so that one of the criticisms last time was, town council gets it 2 days before they got to vote. And I know you'd give them more time than that, but if we could at least get a draft even early on, we might see some things that could make it a little cleaner when it goes forward to the other committees.
Sure. The only missing content from stage 1, or from part 1, is the estimate that we expect back on June 15th. Other than that, we're prepared.
Thanks.
Other questions of Phil on anything presented? Phil, when do you expect to have that summary? I know the estimate's coming the 15th. What shape is that summary in now?
Oh, it's in very good shape. It's just financially, it's blanks.
Is it reviewable shape if we were to put out a draft to the committee to start looking at it soon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation is we don't need everything to be perfect. I think we can start reviewing other pieces and then drop in as we go. So that way, at least we're in a better position to vote. And then we can look forward. I'll meet with you on what dates council and school committee have. And just so the committee knows, I did express this to Phil, is I don't want to drop this on council or school committee's door at 2 days before. My idea would be, as a committee, we send this out to both bodies at the same time, well in advance, at least a reasonable amount of time in advance, and say, here it is, review at your convenience. We're coming for a vote on this date, and certainly forward any questions that you have, so that we're well. I did also ask Phil to give a video intro, a brief video intro, 1 to 2 minutes, to give some context to the process and things, so that when council and school committee review it, they had the benefit of almost looking at a presentation that he would give in a live session. And to that point too, we could even schedule a virtual session to review and answer questions, so that way it's convenient for everybody to kind of go in if we needed to. And it would be one way, obviously. It would be just presenting out.
Is the part one, is the only thing that is missing in the estimating those numbers?
Mhm.
So, if that's the case, then yeah, I think it would be ideal to have it ahead of time with drafts stamped all over it. And, and then once we get the numbers and we pop them in, and then at that point, obviously, we would have we would then recommend, before handing it off to the two bodies, we'd review it completely and then recommend it up.
Doable, Phil?
Yeah, if I'm thinking ahead, where I think the questions are going to come from is probably based on some confusion. The numbers are going to be different. Everyone's been thinking of the $125 million bond. That's the bond. The numbers in the stage 2 are different, because the numbers in the stage 2 represent scopes of work that you want to be eligible for reimbursement if you have additional funding at other schools. And some of the numbers in the stage 2 are going to reflect RIDE's School Building Authority funding formula, which, as we talked about from the very beginning, is a little deficient. So I am prepared to address all of this, but I do think that's where the questions are, because, for example, this stage 2 is actually very simple. It's a new high school and fields. That's it. That's that. And what you're asking for when you submit the stage 2 is for the state to say, will you reimburse us? Is this project eligible for reimbursement? Which I confidently think it is. The question is going to be about all of these numbers. And all of those numbers, to a certain extent, really don't mean anything today. It's going to be when you move into stage 3, when significant amount more documentation is complete. You have a construction manager who's estimating it, you have the design team who's estimating it, and your third-party estimator. Those are the numbers that are really going to matter. And that's how you will work the project to fit within your budget.
So I'll go back to my original question. Is it doable to get that document out?
Yes.
With a lot of caveats. It's going to the committee.
Yes.
They've just heard what you've said. I think if we can we'll have questions, but sooner the better.
Yep.
What I don't want to get caught is, we've had to slide this date a couple times, and it's fine. We're still submitting early. But once we solidify those dates, and people will feel rushed. We're all in the summer, and we're all busy, including everyone around this table. So I think it'd be helpful to have that in advance. So if you can get that over as soon as possible, we'll at least get it distributed in that very draft form, answer questions, and make it iterative as we go. Fair enough?
Yep.
If we can do that, it's June 8th right now. If we can do that now, or as soon as now as possible, is it possible for our respective bodies, us at the school committee and you with the town council, to pick our dates so that we're not looking at like July 30th, so that we're actually looking, like you said, after the 4th of July, but maybe July 10th, and have them be, what we did in the past is they were basically back to back. We had town council approval on a Monday night, school committee approval on the Tuesday night.
And prior to that, you will want a school building committee meeting
That's what I
to
mean.
make the
so
recommendation.
Have us do it, recommend, but we can control our date. We need the school committee and the town council to pinpoint their dates, because otherwise, next thing you know, it's gonna be August.
I mean, the other option is we have a special meeting just for this. We could. I know that's not preferable for most time, but
happy to
it's,
do
it's,
whatever as
it's a
long as we
very
get it
pointed
done.
topic that will take us a short amount of time, I'd imagine.
And we just want to set expectations and put dates in calendars, because people will be traveling and be soccer tournaments, lacrosse tournament, whatever.
So is that something, I'll point to the town manager and the superintendent, are you prepared to address that now, or would you rather do that behind? Yeah. So the school committee would be what, the 11th?
Now that I'm saying that, I am too. I too am back on the 11th. We are not going to the same location, I don't think, unless you're going to Laconia. Not going. Yeah, right. Going to New Hampshire.
Is there, when is the school committee meeting in July?
So typically, we don't meet in July. We have a workshop, like we have a annual retreat, but it is usually the week of either the 17th or the 24th. And I feel like that's too far into July.
So, with all due respect, the order doesn't matter. So if town council had this on the 10th, and you had your meeting the following week, we would be immediately submitting like the next day. Like,
All right.
I don't need to wait
No,
for
that-
meeting minutes afterwards or something like that.
So Mark, are you back at the week? You said you're back on the 11th. So then we can do
Yeah, I'm back on the 11th.
really any date from then forward, so.
Well, so right now, we're hearing that it sounds like we're going to try to shoot for July 10th for council. You want to get back to us on a date that the school committee could potentially do after that? Okay, perfect. So then we can back up from there, because obviously we should weigh in as a building committee before, obviously. So we're going to have to look at the building committee, but we're a little bit more flexible, and we'll make it work. That said, we still need a majority here. And so I'm hearing there's at least one vacation going on. Are there any expectations of other vacations going on early July?
So early July, that first week of July, so outside of the week of the 10th, you're looking at the week of the 4th. So the 4th is a Tuesday, and so then we're either looking at 5, 6, or 7, or the end of June. That's what I think too. Correct. No, I'm with you on that. I would say the week of the 26th. Yep.
So June 29th? Doable? All right, June 29th. Okay,
Does that work for everybody?
so we'll set that vote for June 29th. So that would mean that document, ideally, once the cost estimates come in, if you could give us, a week, maybe the week before, like have it to us by the 23rd, as finished as possible for review, final, like a,
Yeah, I think
Really
you will have the final version if you're meeting on the 26th or
we'd be meeting on the 29th.
29th.
So if you could get it to us the 23rd, before that weekend, that gives us about a week to review the document and come prepared. So you're still on vacation then too?
If you're looking for us, and I don't know what kind of pressure it puts on, but more like the 21st or 22nd of June would be better.
We're back in, so now we're back in his schedule up, so that's why I point to, will we have a suitable document to vote on?
Yes.
The 21st, you
Yeah,
can do?
That's fine. Now, when do you want it? If you meet on the 21st, when do you want the document?
So this is why we keep backing up, right? I would say the 21st, 21st is a Wednesday. I don't know, do we
Or
want
the
to have a
22nd is
22nd?
Thursday to be consistent.
Right.
If we had the bulk of the document and we were just waiting on the numbers, like soon, there's plenty of time to review that. And be ready for it.
When will you have, when is the earliest you can have that compiled report with numbers?
With numbers, what day is the 15th? Now, we're assuming the
It's a
estimator meets
Thursday.
his deadline on the 15th.
15th is
Thursday as well.
That's a Thursday?
Okay, and
It'll be a
it's,
week before.
now it's next Thursday, though. So we are on
What?
the 8th. So next Thursday is the 15th. And then,
But that's a Thursday. I'm
That's
just talking about day of the
Thursday.
week. So that's a Thursday. So let's say he gets it to me Thursday. Let's say if he doesn't, it gets to me Friday. The weekend, 16, 17, 18. Probably that Monday is the soonest I could get it to you, and we would be meeting that Thursday. You could have it without the numbers like
Waiting
next
on the
week.
numbers at that point.
so I think that would be ideal. And is everybody available on the 22nd? Or is anybody going
So
on?
I have to check because I may be on vacation that week. It's either that week or the week after, so I'll double check my schedule. But as long as you have a majority vote, I'll review it, and I'll be reviewing as I go. So I'll let you know if I'm uncomfortable with you voting, but
So we're
we gotta
putting
keep it moving.
on the books for, our next meeting is June 22nd. Bless you. At 5 o'clock. Or we could do 4 o'clock. I'm always a big fan of 4 o'clock, but it's up to the rest of the 22nd.
So for the agenda, there will be an action item on that
Yes.
date.
Yep, we can, so June 22nd, 4 o'clock.
Does 4
Any
o'clock work for
objections?
you guys?
All right, so that's the date. We'll shoot for council.
We do it at noon?
The council will be July 10th.
We'll have exams that week.
The good thing on that is we'll have an approved document from the SBC that we can forward on to council well in advance and the school committee well in advance, so they'll have plenty of time to review it. And we could post that document up on the website as well because we'll have already approved it as a draft, still a draft to be approved by council. So the only thing we'll wait on at that point is Mark to get back to us on a date from the school committee to meet. All right, perfect. June 22nd is the actual vote date for the report. We'll issue the report through email or link prior to the Stage 2 summary.
So we'll get it without numbers as soon as Phil can get it to us. And then once the numbers come, those will be given to us as soon as possible. And then the 22nd is when we vote.
And just,
Or
for the
discussion.
benefit of anybody listening or whatever, the Stage 2s, if you've ever seen them, like, 2/3 of that report is regurgitation of presentations that are probably on the website right now. It's a lot of just copy paste in of what process has been done. So I don't want there to be a feeling that, oh, well, you're boiling it down to the summary and you're not going to actually, we're only looking at a snippet and we're going to get bamboozled. There's something in the back of the report. No, a lot of that is just copy paste. So. All right. Anything else, Phil?
No, that's it.
Anything else from the committee? All right. Sounds like we've already gone into scheduling the next meeting unless, I don't think there's any reason to have a meeting next week, Phil, correct? You don't need any feedback from the committee? Okay. So then the 22nd will be our next meeting. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll make it.
Dave? Chip had the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Have a good night.